Today we have a riveting tale to tell. Okay, that was a bad joke. But we're talking about the Patilio family, a father and son who took the frog theme into the modern era. Today is all about, I can't believe I'm saying this, Leapfrog and Frogman. Thanks for watching JL's Comics. Hit that subscribe button so you can keep up with all of our weekly content. And with that out of the way, let's jump right into the story. The man known as Vincent Patilio was a scientist, but not a very good one, for he had way more failures than successes. He worked in research and development for a toy company, but either his inventions failed or the toys didn't sell at retail. One of his first and arguably greatest scientific achievements were the battery-powered coils that he would attach to the soles of his Frogman suit to allow him to leap like a frog. Then after a series of continuous failures, he needed to do something. You see, failures are good for science. In fact, Albert Einstein once said, "Failure is success in progress." Failure, though, doesn't pay the bills, and so Vinny needed to do something to make ends meet, so he turned to crime. He would need to field test his springs first. He donned the spring-loaded shoes, a green suit, and put a handkerchief over his face and went to the airport to bounce around. This happened to be at the same time that an attorney named Matt Murdock, secretly the superhero known as Daredevil, was disembarking from his plane. The police were chasing him, and he ended up using Matt Murdock as a hostage, and Matt couldn't do anything lest he expose himself as the superhero that he was and therefore reveal his true identity. Later, Vinny decided the field test was a success, so he sought his next step to ramp up his criminality beyond trespassing. Vinny put on his costume and robbed the first jewelry store that he could find. The alarm was tripped and Daredevil responded, though Vinny, the Leapfrog, managed to get away. He then robbed a City National Bank branch in Midtown, which again drew Daredevil's attention. This time, however, Daredevil stopped the Leapfrog and turned him over to the police. For his subsequent trial, Foggy Nelson from the law firm Nelson and Murdoch represented Vinny as his defense attorney. During the trial, Vinny denied everything, saying he had never seen those Leapfrog spring-loaded boots before. So the DA, calling his bluff, told him to try the boots on. Unbeknownst to Vinny, the DA had the foresight to remove the fasteners on the boots. So when Vinny leapt out the window to escape, one of the boots fell off and he tumbled to the ground, landing in front of another villain named Stiltman. Stiltman was there because he was going to break Vinny out, but after this mishap and him falling to the floor at his feet, Stiltman changed his mind and just left Vinny on the ground so he could go battle with Daredevil, who'd also pursued Vincent after his escape attempt. While Stiltman had no use for Leapfrog, Electro did, and so Electro recruited Vinny to join his emissaries of evil. They had all failed to take down Daredevil on their own, so Electro figured if they joined forces, they'd have a better chance. But that too proved to be futile as they were disorganized and proved no match for Daredevil's superior situational awareness. Daredevil encountered Leapfrog in Central Park and then ended up in a pitched battle with the emissaries of evil. The Matador tried to capture Daredevil under his cloak, but Daredevil got out and threw Leapfrog underneath without Matador seeing that, so thinking of Daredevil, he beat Leapfrog to a pulp, trying to make him as flat as a lily pad. Daredevil was then able to take down the rest of the emissaries until the police could show up and take them all into custody. And then a life model decoy of Jake Fury, Nick Fury's younger brother, started calling himself Scorpio. Scorpio created two LMDs named Sagittarius and Libra to serve in his group called the Zodiac. So after a documentarian released his expose on the Defenders, the LMDs formed a band of criminals to pose as the Defenders and commit crimes. Sagittarius led one group while Libra led another, comprising of Picos, Melter, Shocker, Boomerang, Joe the Gorilla, Toad, and Leapfrog. This was at the same time that the Defenders were doing a recruitment drive called Defender for a Day, and so everybody came to fight this fake Defenders team. They'd managed to overpower Nighthawk, and then at the end of the battle it was Valkyrie who took out Leapfrog with one mighty strike. After a battle with Spider-Man, Vinny became a technician in the employ of Justin Hammer, and then a bodyguard to him, part of Hammer's army of supervillains. And Hammer sent them after Iron Man to take out Iron Man, but Stark crushed Frogman by throwing another supervillain named the Beetle into him. Vincent was then sent to Evansville Penitentiary to serve his prison sentence, and it was while serving time that his wife Rose was diagnosed with breast cancer and ended up passing away. And when this happened, Vinny's son Eugene was put in the care of Vinny's sister Rosemary Marie, along with Marie's husband Gus Colorito. Not wanting to be associated with his father, especially amongst the unforgiving high school peers, Eugene called himself Eugene Colorito instead of Eugene Patilio. But then tragedy struck once more. Gus would be the next one to die. When Vinny was released on parole, he ended up moving in with Marie as well, and they all lived together at her apartment in Brooklyn, New York. Vinny by this time wanted to change, so he got a job on a car lot where he would dress up in his costume and calling himself Frogface. But then Vinny's identity was released on television, and they released Eugene's changed name, and so both Vinny and Eugene were then ridiculed and mocked. Vinny was beat with a bat and his son Eugene was bullied at school, and desperate to get some respect back, Eugene put on the costume to get revenge, but he couldn't control the costume, and some bullies beat him up until his father could drive up and save him, having to break his house arrest. Not long after this, Vinny and Eugene moved out of Marie's house and got their own apartment uptown, but Vinny was becoming increasingly angry and frustrated. Vinny's rock bottom came during one confrontation where he slapped his own son. So, to reclaim his father's honor and restore his own dignity and to improve their living situation, Eugene stole his father's old green suit and decided to become a hero instead of a villain, to do his best to do good. And so in Eugene's first published appearance, which was 1982's Marvel Team-Up issue 121, Eugene became the fabulous Frogman. Frogman went out to do good and ended up saving a lady from some purse snatchers, though she was rather ungrateful. The police still believed Frogman was the old villain Leapfrog, and so they tried to apprehend him. At one point, Frogman came upon a battle between Spider-Man, Human Torch, and a guy named Speed Demon, and he tried to help, but inadvertently ended up helping Speed Demon instead. And then after losing control, Frogman bounced into Speed Demon, taking him down and winning his first superhero victory, even if it was accidental. Riding high on his victory, Eugene started taking the frog suit with him in his backpack, and so when he saw White Rabbit trying to rob a Quickie Burger, he was able to quickly don the suit and confront her. Eugene was nearly killed in the fight and might have perished, but Spider-Man showed up to intervene and save Frogman. And then, a guy that Vinny knew from his old days named Joe Face, who was now part of White Rabbit's gang, approached him. Vinny was afraid now that his son would truly die while out fighting crime, so Vinny went to the police and offered to go undercover for them to infiltrate White Rabbit's gang. White Rabbit and Vincent ended up in a confrontation with Eugene, but it ended with White Rabbit captured, the gang broken up, and Vinny receiving a large reward for his efforts, which allowed him the means to get his family out of destitution, and it helped him realize his past no longer needed to define him. Vincent didn't want to lose his son too, and so he made Eugene promise he'd stop going out as a costume crime fighter. Soon thereafter, they would both end up moving back into his sister's house in Brooklyn. And though Vinny wished Eugene would stop being a vigilante, Eugene continued to do so. He showed up next when Spider-Man was battling other crooks at a warehouse, and he tried to help, but his efforts allowed the thugs to escape. Later, after Hank McCoy, aka the Beast, came to speak at Brooklyn University, Eugene was watching and suddenly interrupted McCoy's speech to try to audition for the New Defenders. The audience liked the idea of Frogman being in the New Defenders, but before the Defenders could say anything, a villain named Walrus attacked. The Defenders told Eugene to stay back, but he leapt into action, and when Walrus collapsed on his own because he had eaten too many burgers and got indigestion, it looked like Eugene had another victory on his hands. Eugene's father saw the battle on TV and showed up to take Eugene home, with Eugene never truly getting an answer from the Defenders about his membership application. In Amazing Spider-Man 266, Frogman joined Spider-Man, Spider-Kid, and Toad to briefly form a team called the Misfits, but quickly broke up when Toad couldn't stay clean, so Frogman went back to solo adventuring. Vinny was not happy with that choice, and so he threw out the old Froggy costumes, hoping this would finally convince Eugene to stop going out, but Eugene ended up finding a costume and taking it out of the trash. He went out and, while stopping some kidnappers, ran into Captain America, and Cap told Eugene to go home. Eugene disobeyed again and continued pursuing the kidnappers and uncovered that Yellowclaw was behind the plot, which quickly got himself captured. The crooks beat Eugene up and tortured him, then left him to be killed by an army of mutated frogs. But instead of killing him, the frogs befriended Eugene and he turned them back on Yellowclaw, which was the distraction that Captain America needed for him and Spider-Man, Beast, Human Torch, Angel, and Iceman to foil Yellowclaw's plot. Afterward, having been so close to death, Eugene respected the costume more. He understood the risks much more and began to be much more cognizant of his carelessness. Then Eugene ended up working with an agency called Damage Control, which would repair damage left over from superhero battles. And so, during the Acts of Vengeance story arc, Frogman got some repairs from one of the Damage Control agents named Gene Strasser. Strasser also made some other repairs and upgrades to Frogman's suit, while Eugene himself used his newfound computer tech skills to design and build an exoskeleton and a sophisticated guidance system for the suit, which was supposed to help his flight time and control his trajectory when he leapt. In 1992, Frogman was on a school vacation and back in his hometown. That week, he ended up inviting Spider-Man to dinner, and after they ate, they saw on TV that White Rabbit had teamed up with Walrus and were causing problems in the city, and they said they wouldn't stop until Frogman surrendered to them. Spider-Man went after White Rabbit and Walrus, and Vinny told his son to stay home to be safe, and instead, Vincent donned the costume and went after them, but Eugene also did, despite his father's order, and so the three of them ended up defeating Walrus and White Rabbit, and they wouldn't be seen again for nearly a decade. In 2001, a guy named Buford Lang found one of Vincent's old Leapfrog suits and put it on to fight Daredevil as a new Leapfrog. Buford was abusive to his wife and young son, and when his son Timmy almost saw this new Leapfrog defeat Daredevil, he electrocuted his own father to save Daredevil, and really to save him and his mom from the abuse. During Civil War, while trying to hire for the pro-registration faction and looking for recruits for the Initiative, Tony Stark considered Eugene as a potential. The Frogman was later captured by Kraven the Hunter and put in a cage. Kraven wanted to build a zoo of supervillains who were using animal themes, and so Frogman was put with Kangaroo, Vulture, Rhino, Mongoose, Grizzly, Swarm, and other supervillains. Kraven had them in cages and had bombs strapped to their necks to prevent them from escaping, and Kraven then drove all his captives mad and set them loose on a ship so that they would attack the Punisher. Kraven hunted down Frogman, who tried to explain that he wasn't actually a frog, and so Kraven seemingly murdered him with a harpoon. But was he? Nope. Eugene had been captured and taken off planet and was replaced by a Skrull during the Secret Invasion. The Skrull Frogman ended up joining the Initiative and was put on a sub-team called Action Pack with Prima Donna and Vox, and tasked with defending Kentucky as part of the 50-state initiative. We then see him coming back from a snack run to find Prima Donna and Vox setting up a portal gate. The portal gate was to send criminals to the Initiative's prison in the Negative Zone. So as soon as it was online, another Initiative trainee launched a psychic attack on Action Pack, then jumped through the portal to escape. So the team tried to report this back to Camp Hammond, but they couldn't, because the folks at Camp Hammond were distracted by the Vulturions and Scarlet Spiders fighting. And then it was a severed head that was able to figure out that this Frogman was a Skrull imposter. Once exposed, the Skrull then attacked Action Pack, Hardball, and Moonstomp. And it was at the end of Secret Invasion when Eugene was finally able to return to Earth, along with all the others who'd been replaced by Skrulls. He was then sent to Camp Hammond for readjustment and helped by Alicia Masters and Doc Samson with transitioning back to his normal life and dealing with the trauma. In 2009's Web of Spider-Man issue 1, Spider-Man had defeated Kangaroo when Frogman showed up, and he jumped at the already defeated Kangaroo, declaring victory, and then tried to convince Spider-Man to join him as a team. Spidey became annoyed with Froggy and left him, which is when Frogman had to deal with his own sidekick, an annoying tag-along called the Tenacious Tadpole. During the Fear Itself event, when the serpent-infused Cole was wreaking havoc on the planet, Captain America had Prodigy bring the Initiative back together to stop Cole, and Frogman was one of the many heroes to show up. Frogman paired up with Scarlet Spider, Gravity, Geiger, and others to go to New Jersey to help put out fires. Frogman ran into a SWAT team at one of the buildings, where he learned they were dealing with a hostage situation, and there he ended up battling with Crossbones. They then went to Las Vegas to help out the Desert Stars who'd been evacuating Las Vegas along with Rage and debris. It was there that Frogman ended up saving a guy named Johnny Cool. The earthquake staked their shaking finally, and Frogman thanked, of all people, Shumagoroth. After that, they ended up having to fight with Tareen, aka Thorgirl, who'd now transformed and took on the new codename Designate. In Spider Island Avengers, Frogman teamed up with Miss Marvel to fight back against Flag Smasher and Ultimatum, who'd attacked a UN building. He paired up with Miss Marvel, Jessica Jones, and Hawkeye to stop the Ultimatum bomb. Flag Smasher was about to kill Hawkeye with his mace, but Frogman saved the Avenger, and later Miss Marvel told him he was close to being Avengers material, but I think we all know she was just being nice. In 2015's Deadpool's Secret Wars, which is part of the third Secret Wars story, Deadpool was doing flashbacks, and Frogman was seen as part of the heroes gathered by the Unknown and the Grandmaster for the Contest of Champions. Frogman was put on Grandmaster's team, along with Rocket Racer, Tapeworm, the Vile, and She-Man Thing. In the Battle Royale, Frogman fought Howard the Duck and Dupe alongside Tapeworm. Frogman was later at the bar with No Name, drinking as others discussed how to take down Daredevil. And in Jessica Jones issue 4, Frog was arrested, and he tried to escape, hopping all around the police office, saying he was innocent, and so it was Jessica Jones who stopped him this time. Maybe he didn't remember because he'd been drinking. In 2019, the Kraven office had come to New York City, and Black It and Taskmaster, two mercenaries, were hunting down people using the name or look of an animal. Kraven had also paired with Arcade to build Robot Kravens, and they used their forces to attack Spider-Man in Central Park, while Arcade sold tickets to watch and for the ticket holders to be immersed in the action. Arcade discovered Kraven's treachery, and so he recruited Vulture to rally Frogman and the other villains and help them fight back to escape their Central Park trap. In the year 2020 into 2021, Korvac was resurrected, and he badly wounded Hellcat, then revealed that he had Jim Rhodes' War Machine captive. So Iron Man and Hellcat put together a team of heroes to stop Korvac from going to Iron Man's Ta 2. This new team was Halcyon, Scarlet Spider, Misty Knight, Gargoyle, and Frogman. The narration said that Frogman had been working as a busboy at Isaac's Oysters in the village in between gigs. So anyway, the team found Korvac's Shi'ar jump ship, and Tony ordered them to disable it. It turned out to be a trap, and Korvac detonated the ship and the entire building with Frogman and the team inside. Gargoyle was able to shield them with his bio-mystical energy, so they weren't dead. Frogman also served as the team's translator for Halcyon's sign language. On the way through space, Frogman talked with Scarlet Spider and said that they would need a team name, and he suggested names like Star Warriors and God Fighters. clearly also being the comedic relief for this team. And as they entered battle in space, Frogman said, "Stuff is officially hitting the fan," rather ominous, offset by the perpetual smile on his costume. They ended up linking up with Iron Man aboard Korvac's world ship for a big battle. Frogman was still trying to name the team, and on the assault, War Machine called him a liability. Frogman was hopping around while others blasted Korvac's forces, but then Frogman saw him, and he went after Korvac himself. Frogman kicked Korvac in the face with both his feet just before Iron Man's team showed up to take Korvac and his forces down for good. And then in 2021, during the Chameleon Conspiracy, Frogman was up on Chance's floating casino ship called the Palace, fighting with the likes of Jack-o'-lantern, Grizzly, and others who were all battling each other. In the conclusion to that story, Spider-Man was with Ned Leeds and swung up to the casino, where he saw them all in a heated battle. The Frogs of Marvel have much more story to tell as we move on into the future. Also in Marvel Comics lore, there has been a few Unova-themed characters like the Toad, and Gorko the Man-Frog, Francois LeBlanc, the US Navy combat diver from the Animen, who was given powers by Count Nefaria and who called himself Frogman, as well as Buford Lang, a Leapfrog who was resurrected by the Hand. So where will the Frog folks show up next? We'll have to wait and see, which means that's a wrap on this one, my friends. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and you'll be one of the first to know when I upload videos just like this every week. I'm Jesse, this is JLS Comics, and I'll see you soon.